Greetings from the Book Whisper. Every story is a journey into a world of love, passion, deception, and self-discovery. Close your eyes, let the sounds carry you away, and may this story touch your heart. The Unseen Guest. Portland rain wasn't romantic, it was a persistent, gray sigh that misted the windows of Olivia's downtown loft and seemed to seep into the very grain of her life. It had been falling the evening 2 years ago when her husband, Liam, a celebrated architect with a smile like a drawn blueprint, precise, impressive, and ultimately flat, had told her he needed space, a sabbatical from us, he'd called it. He'd moved to a sleek apartment across the Willamette River, citing the pressures of his new commission, The Spire, a twisting glass monument to urban living. Olivia, a textile conservator for the city's art museum, understood preservation, the patience required to mend what was fragile. She had applied that patience to her marriage, believing his absence was a temporary fraying, not a cut. For 2 years, they existed in a state of genteel limbo. They attended gallery openings together, a united front for their social circle. He texted on her birthday. They discussed their shared assets with polite detachment, but the bedroom and the loft had remained half empty. A museum exhibit titled Marriage, circa 2018. The delicate fiction began to unravel on a Tuesday. Olivia was meticulously repairing a 19th century mourning quilt when her phone buzzed. A notification from a shared cloud storage account she'd forgotten existed, one she and Liam had used years ago for vacation photos. A new folder had been created. It was named Spire Progress. Curious, thinking it might be his way of reconnecting, she tapped it. It wasn't architectural drafts, it was a series of photographs, intimate and sun-drenched, taken somewhere like Arizona or California, and in them was Liam, not the composed, slightly distant man she knew. This Liam was relaxed, his face softened by a joy that was utterly unfamiliar. He had his arms around a woman, not a colleague, not a casual fling. The woman was turned in towards him, laughing, her face partly obscured, but Olivia knew the sweep of that honey blonde hair, the curve of that shoulder. It was Evelyn Shaw, the wife of Theo Shaw, Liam's most important client and their occasional dinner guest. The betrayal was a cold, slow-acting poison. It wasn't the infidelity itself, their marriage had been a ghost for years. It was the artistry of the deception, the sabbatical, the public appearances with her, all while he built a new life with Evelyn. And the cruelest touch, using their old, sentimental cloud account, a digital space that still whispered of their past, to store the evidence of his new future. Was it carelessness, or a subconscious wish to be caught? Disappointment, a constant companion, hardened into something sharper. But Olivia was not a woman of hysterics. She was a woman of threads, of patterns, of restoring truth by removing the false supports. She closed the folder. She didn't confront. She began to observe. Her investigation was methodical. She tracked Liam's business trips to Phoenix, where Theo Shaw had a sprawling winter home. She noted Evelyn's newfound passion for desert architecture on Instagram. The pieces fit with a sickening click. The passion she saw in the photos was real. This was no mere affair, it was a love story, and she, Olivia, was the inconvenient prologue. The intrigue presented itself not as a desire to win Liam back, but as a need to understand the full scope of the fiction, and to control its ending. She couldn't simply expose them to Theo, a brash, self-made man who adored his much younger wife. That would be messy, destructive, and would paint her as the scorned woman. She needed them to unravel themselves. Her opportunity came at the opening gala for the Spire's completion. The building was Liam's masterpiece, and Theo Shaw was the proud patron. The great glass atrium was filled with the city's elite. Olivia wore a dress of midnight blue silk, a color that felt like armor. Liam was the poised center of attention. Evelyn, on Theo's arm, looked ethereal in silver. Her eyes, however, kept finding Liam's across the room, a current of silent electricity between them that Olivia, now tuned to the frequency, saw with painful clarity. Olivia's plan was subtle. She sought out Theo, engaging him in conversation about the building's art collection, a subject she knew bored him. As he glanced away, seeking an escape, she murmured, just loud enough for him to catch, "Liam's vision is so singular, it must be inspiring to work so closely with a mind like his." Evelyn seems quite captivated. Theo's gaze snapped back to her, a flicker of something not suspicion, but possessiveness in his eyes. Evie appreciates beauty, he said, his voice a low rumble. Of course, Olivia smiled, a gentle, innocent curve of her lips. It's just lovely to see her so engaged. She and Liam seem to have developed quite a rapport during all those site visits to Phoenix. She left the seed planted and drifted away, a classic tactic, not an accusation, but an observation that frames innocent facts in a damning light. The second act of her play required an accomplice. She chose Amelia, a sharp-eyed art historian and her oldest friend, who had never liked Liam. Over Pinot Noir in her loft, Olivia laid out the evidence, not with tears, but with the clinical detachment of a conservator presenting a damaged canvas. I need you to befriend Evelyn, Olivia said. She's new to Portland's art scene. Take her to coffee, be warm, listen. And what am I listening for? Amelia asked, her eyes gleaming with intrigue. For the story they've told themselves. Every lie has its own logic. I need to know theirs. Amelia, with her disarming warmth and intellectual curiosity, was perfect. She met Evelyn for coffee, then lunch, framing it as a welcome from the museum crowd. She reported back, Evelyn was lonely, trapped in a gilded cage with Theo, who was more benefactor than husband. She spoke of Liam with a breathless admiration that crossed professional lines. He sees me, Evelyn had confessed to Amelia, her eyes bright. He sees the person I want to be, not the accessory I am. Olivia now understood the passion. It was a classic romance, the trapped princess and the brilliant knight, and she was the old queen, stubbornly occupying the castle. Armed with this, Olivia engineered the final, delicate pressure. She invited Liam to the loft under the pretext of finally discussing the divorce, a conversation he'd been avoiding. She made tea, her movements calm. She didn't mention the photos. Instead, she spoke of Evelyn. I saw Evelyn at the museum the other day with Amelia, she said, stirring honey into her cup. She is so vibrant. It's no wonder Theo is so devoted. Liam stiffened almost imperceptibly. Theo is a possessive man. Is he? Olivia feigned innocence. He seems to give her a great deal of freedom. All those trips south. It's generous of him to share her passion for your work so fully. The air in the room grew thin. Liam's carefully constructed facade, the narrative of the dedicated architect and the misunderstood client's wife, was being gently dissected. Olivia was reflecting his own lie back at him, but through the lens of Theo's unknowing generosity, which made the deception look cheap, not romantic. What are you implying, Olivia? His voice was tight. Nothing at all, she said, meeting his eyes. I'm just observing patterns, like I do with textiles. Sometimes, what looks like a strong, beautiful thread from the front is just a shaky basting stitch on the back, holding everything together until the real work can be done, or until it all falls apart. He left soon after, unsettled. The tension was now a living thing in all their lives. Olivia watched as the careful dance between Liam and Evelyn grew strained, more hurried, more desperate. Theo, now subtly primed by Olivia's earlier comment, began to ask more questions about the endless site visits. The gilded cage of their affair was becoming a prison. The climax arrived not with a thunderous confrontation, but with a silent, seismic shift. The annual museum charity ball was the social event of the season. Olivia, Liam, Theo, and Evelyn were all there, a quartet moving in a tense minuet. Halfway through the evening, Olivia saw Liam and Evelyn slip out onto the deserted terrace, a sliver of shadow against the glittering skyline. This was the moment, not for her to expose them, but for the pressure to crack them open. She subtly guided Theo towards the terrace doors, engaging him in a conversation about a potential donation. As they neared the glass, the scene outside became clear. Liam and Evelyn, not in a passionate embrace, but in a fierce, whispered argument. Evelyn's face was streaked with tears. Liam gripped her arms, his expression one of anguish and frustration. Theo stopped dead. The possessive flicker Olivia had seen before ignited into a cold, silent rage. He didn't burst onto the terrace. He simply turned and walked away, a mountain deciding to avalanche later. The intimacy of the fight was more damning than any kiss. It spoke of a deep, complicated entanglement, a shared secret that had soured. The unraveling was swift and discreet. Theo shut down all future projects with Liam's firm. Evelyn vanished from Portland society, rumored to be visiting family in Europe indefinitely. Liam's professional reputation, so tied to the Shaw account, suffered a blow from which it wouldn't easily recover. He came to the loft one last time, a broken man. The precise architect was gone, replaced by a stranger hollowed out by consequence. "You knew," he said, his voice raw. "Yes. Why didn't you just tell Theo? Why this surgical dismantling?" "Because telling him would have made it his drama, and mine," Olivia said, looking out at the ever-present rain. "I needed it to be your drama. I needed you to live in the mess you made, to see the cheap materials behind the beautiful facade. You and Evelyn built a fantasy on a foundation of lies. I just gave it a gentle nudge. Gravity did the rest." He had no answer. The divorce, when it was finally filed, was a quiet administrative footnote. Weeks later, Olivia received a package. Inside, with no note, was a small, exquisitely woven Navajo textile, a rare and beautiful piece she had once admired in a catalog. It was a restoration, the damage skillfully integrated into a new, resilient whole. The return address was a gallery in Santa Fe. She knew it was from Theo Shaw. It wasn't an apology, nor a romantic overture. It was a statement from one connoisseur to another, an acknowledgement of her skill, her patience, and her devastating, quiet precision. He had seen her hand in the unraveling, and he respected the craft of it. Olivia hung the textile on her wall. The rain continued to fall on Portland, but the gray light now felt cleansing, not suffocating. She had not won her husband back. She had not caused a spectacular scandal. She had preserved her own dignity and allowed a flawed, dishonest structure to collapse under its own weight. The unexpected twist was not a new love, but a newfound respect for herself, and from the most unlikely of sources, the intricate, painful tapestry of the past was finally finished, and for the first time in years, the space before her was a blank, serene, and promising loom. Dear listeners of the Book Whisper, we hope you've been left with a lasting impression. We're constantly searching for new stories to share with you. Don't miss what's next. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Give us a like if you'd love more audiobooks like this. Until our next meeting on the pages of our tales.